This is Amy Better. I'm with Richard Strozzi from the Strozzi Institute.
That's right.
And Richard's going to introduce himself and talk a little bit about what they do and their purpose.
Yeah, the mission of Strozzi Institute is to help leaders embody grounded compassion, skillful action, pragmatic wisdom, and that we take conflict as a generative action as opposed to conflict that we have to defeat somebody or move away from. Mm-hmm. And really the key word in that, Amy, is that embody. Mm-hmm. So what we found is that people will read a text, they'll see a case study, they might see a video, it opens some possibilities for them, but they're not able to take new actions. So what we do is we've produced and generated a number of practices and narratives where people can do over time that allows them to be different actors in the world. Not just knowledgeable about things, but different actors. You know, when I was studying, part of my background is in, I've been doing martial arts forever. Still do martial arts. I teach Aikido, but I started with Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, and I studied in Japan. And when we got together with these other young testosterone-driven men at the end of class, everybody was kind of posturing, and there was a young man from New Guinea there. And what he said about everybody kind of vying for how good they were, what they could do. He said, we have a proverb in my country that says, knowledge is only a rumor until it's in the muscle. And you know, in that moment, it was like, boom.
Right.
That was like, right, we have a lot of ideas about things, we have a lot of visions, but can you actually, as we say in the martial arts, put it on the mat?
Yes.
Does it make you a different
I'm a yoga instructor, we say the same thing.
You do. That's right. Well, it's a universal truth.
Exactly. It's living it, it's embodying it, it's not just saying it.
That's right. That's right. You are that.
Exactly.
You are that. So that's what we do. We do that. We have these tracks where we have a leadership track, where people come in and do our public courses to develop their leadership. We work with organizations, quite a few organizations, to help build teams, build their strategies, build their development, organizational development, and who they are as a culture of leadership. Mm-hmm. So we really emphasize building a culture of leadership. And we also have what we call a somatic coaching track.
So, I want to go back to one of the words you used, compassion.
Yes.
I think as an entrepreneur, a business leader, wrapping your head around compassion and just thinking about it in a couple ways of compassion for yourself when you're not sure things are going great and you're still trying to put a face to the outside world to keep things going. Compassion for other people that have demands on your time, your customers, your clients, and you know, entrepreneurs can feel pulled right and left. So how do you embody that when you're feeling so stretched in what you do in your business?
Well, the first thing is that when we find ourselves, what we teach is when people, leaders, entrepreneurs, find themselves so stretched that they're not really building foundational leadership practices or foundational relationship practices, you saw me just go through very briefly a centering practice. Mm-hmm. How do I bring myself back to the present moment? How do I become open to possibilities and at the same time stay connected to what I care about? So even in that moment where you feel pressed and somebody comes towards you, you saw me do it with this woman right here, where I met her for a moment and I said, now's not the right time.
Right.
And this is where we can meet.
Yeah.
So the first step is you notice that you're stretched, you're off balance, you're off center, you bring yourself back, you connect with that person, and then you can say, yes, let's keep going, let's make a counter offer. I'm going to decline completely, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so one of the things he's talking about is we're at Wisdom 2.0, and on stage he did an embodiment practice, and there were 5 stages, you said 4. We didn't get to the number 4, I was writing them down.
Let me just tell you that the light was blinking. Get off the stage.
How you actually get your composure during the day take yourself out of your thinking mind, getting yourself centered as a leader so that you're making the best decisions possible. Do you want to quickly talk about those 5 stages?
Yeah.
And I won't blink at you. Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, let me say that I just working with an executive, and I gave him this practice. Set his watch, his Apple Watch, 4 times. It was 6 times a day for 1 minute, and during it would go off, and during that minute, he would simply say, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." For a full minute, he would say, "Thank you." Now, this was really geared towards him and what he was doing, but that brought him back to the richness of his life, the gratefulness he had for his life, and getting back in the present moment. And he would even do it where somebody would say, he'd be talking, he'd go, "I have a call." And he would fake the call and just say, "Thank you." Yes. So it's really like we teach people, leaders, how to tune in to your peers, your colleagues, and how can you take a coaching moment and saying, we're going to be more productive, we're going to be more creative if we're in the present moment right now.
Yes.
And being in the present moment doesn't mean hunky-dory.
Right.
It could mean I'm going to go hot, like I'm dissatisfied here.
Right.
But I'm centered when I'm doing it.
You're aware that that's happening for you in your body at this moment. And how you're interacting with other people, you might change it based on your awareness
That's right.
of your inner self.
And the other thing is that when we talk about compassion, basically what we say is you're authenticating or legitimatizing the other person's experience.
Yeah.
You may not be agreeing with it or any of that, but you go, oh, this is their view of reality.
Yeah.
And what we've known as humans for 3 millennia is that there's something that gets released in this when we feel acknowledged. Yeah, there's something that gets released in this when we feel acknowledged, and those are endorphins, and it's a feeling of well-being. And when people have that feeling, they're more productive, and their mood's better, and all of those things.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
Because this just happened to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard this. I'm with one of my granddaughters, just comes back in 1st grade. She comes back and she's written this story. She's colored it in and all that. And it's a seashell that falls in love with a sea tortoise. So I said, let me read that, Cam. And then she goes like, oh, and she becomes a teacher.
Yeah.
So she does it, and I said to her, Cameron, that's incredible. Now you can read to me, and we can buy books together. And then I said to her, now look me in the eyes. Look me right in the eyes. And I had her attention. I said, but more than anything, this tells me who you are. And she had this moment, and then she went, ah. I mean, she just melted into me. And I was like, oh, it's true, you get recognized.
Yeah, and it's so, like, as a child, it's so there, but that doesn't go away for people.
There's a child in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a moment where somebody doing this, I mean, we find people will go through an action cycle, and at the very end, they get what they need and walk away.
Yeah.
And say, hey, look, stop, center yourself and say, thank you.
Yes.
Great job.
Yeah.
Or thank you, but it's not complete. We can complete it this way.
Yeah.
And the whole mood and tone of the environment changes, and people. I mean, I can't. We have so much both anecdotal and statistical information in our work that shows that when that happens, productivity happens, retainability happens. Yes. People want to keep working in the same place, etc. Yeah,
because they feel appreciated.
Right.
Yeah. So one last question, coming back to this embodied leader, is, you talked about different ways that you stand and what energy that creates for yourself and for others, the way that you stand. And I'd like to kind of talk about the difference if you're a male leader, a female leader. What are some of the differences you see in how people show their leadership, or vice versa, how you've helped to correct it as well?
Well, let me see if I'm answering your question here, okay? Because there's a number of different points there. Is that, as we all know, there's a huge differential differential between male and female leaders in companies, all the way from pay grade to responsibility to people being listened to. And that we make that very explicit. We make that very explicit that this is really basically a waste of talent and a waste of creativity. And that if there are 4 males in a room and 1 female, it has to be acknowledged that there's a power differential going on here. Let's make it explicit.
Right.
Not like blaming necessarily. Right. We just want to surface all that. So we really come with what is there. In terms of building a leadership presence, we say basically there's these 5 elements to it. Can you get yourself present? Center. Can you face into or align to what actually the conversation has to be? You're not overbearing. You're not shy of it. How do you extend your attention towards that other person? So we know that energy follows attention. So if you train your attention, you can put it out into the world and touch people. You can focus it, you can open it, you can bring that attention back. And then the next step is what we call enter. The acronym is CFI. And this is the entering is then you make a request or you make a declaration or you make an assessment or you maybe do a counter offer, and that begins to shape how action is happening. And the B stands for blending. So how do you do it in a way when you're interacting with this other person in which you can monitor or calibrate what's too much and what's too little? What's too much and what's too little?
And I know I said that was my last question, but I'm going to add one more because I did a speaking engagement yesterday to women leaders. And the topic of that is about how to create supportive women networks. But many of the issues for women is getting to leadership positions. There's a big differential. Like you said, there's 4 men in a room and 1 woman. And a lot of things that come up for women that they'll say is, if I act like a man, I'm seen as aggressive. If I don't do that and I speak the way I'd like to speak, they speak over me or they ignore me in a room. So what would be some of your best tips for that how you might change your body language or the way that you communicate in order to change that paradigm as a woman in the room?
Yeah, the third thing that we see there too is that if I become passionate about something, I'm dismissed for just being overly emotional.
Yes.
That's a third kind of thing. Well, I think the centering practice has layers to it.
Yeah.
But that's a fundamental piece. So one can go, oh, I'm being talked over, and get centered and sit and then make a request, which is a whole skill in itself.
Right.
We just don't make requests. We have to get the body to make requests in saying, you keep interrupting me, and I have a request to you.
Yeah.
Is that you let me finish when I'm speaking. So that part of our claim is, where do people live?
Right.
We live in bodies and we live in language. So many of our practices bring together body and language. So you get present, you get connected, you face in, you enter into the conversation, and you say, I have a request here.
Well, and I think a big piece of that too is when you're feeling angst, you keep talking or you get louder, and your point being like, get yourself to a centering position and pause.
Yes.
Before you respond, so that you can, even silence is uncomfortable for people to get their attention sometimes.
Yes.
So.
Well, I know that I'm speaking to the choir here.
Yeah.
To put this in here.
Yeah.
But our nervous system is self-referring, which means that it's hard for us to see outside of our own stories,
right,
and out of our own sensations.
Yeah.
So what's immeasurable is to have a good guide or a good coach that can say to you, every time you do this, you tilt your head like this, and this is a move of acquiescence. If one dog dominates another dog, they do this and say, oh, you're dominant, don't go over my juggle again.
Right.
And if we live in that, we don't see that. So to have a skilled somatic coach that can give you that feedback.
Yeah.
And we and people talk about body language, but it's not body language.
Yeah.
It's the self.
Right.
The self and the body are one piece.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time doing this, and I look forward to sharing it with people.
You brought up another question.
Okay.
The last piece, symbolic body.
Yes.
The body is an object. The learning performative body, the emotional body, and the energetic body is number 5.
Okay.
And that's when we're really, you do yoga. That's union.
Yes.
You're trying to get union with that primal energy.
Yeah.
And listen to that 3.5 billion years of intelligence.
And what I liked about the 5 stages, I think, so I own a yoga studio as well, and people come in and they're like, well, why can't I do this today? And looking at what other people are doing and realizing it's a journey,
Right.
and you have to be there to learn about yourself and take the time to do these things and not feel rushed about it. It's about learning